Usually, the Senate elders would come here to take part of the ceremony. But this time, they were invited to go there instead. Seal herself is already there, so it's just them two that need to go there now. Eugene asks when, and she notes that they should leave as soon as they are ready to. With that, Eugene tells Kyan that they should go now, as he's sure that they will have everything they need there. Kyan accepts, and while they walk down a corridor, Kyan notes that he finished reading the book that he wrote for him. And well, it doesn't seem that useful, as doing all of this is simply torturing the core a lot. If he follows these methods, he will just pass out from the lack of mana in his body. Eugene says that this is how he trained it, thinking that it's how Hamel used to train his mana, even though he changed it a bit for Kyan, in order to make him even try. He tells him to keep something in mind. He must do it, even if he thinks he can't. He has to keep going, even if he wants to cry and throw up blood. That is what he must sacrifice in order to become like him. And more importantly, this is what he needs to do in order to become patriarch. Kyan is quite spooked by his words and calls him a bastard, which Eugene enjoys, as it means his teasing is working. Kyan also notes that this is the first time in a long while the coming-of-age ceremony is being held somewhere else, especially at the Black Lion Castle. However, he kind of gets why, as because of that sad sack of nothing Iode, the Senate has been keeping an eye on them too. Maybe, just maybe, they want to teach them a lesson, and most likely warn him specifically of something. Eugene asks what they would do with him then, and Kyan explains that, since he's the future patriarch, maybe they want to congratulate him a little earlier, and he might even be allowed to go to Vermouth's grave. This makes Eugene stare at him deeply, as Vermouth's resting place is located in Mount Ulcus, but its precise location is extremely well hidden, and even the current patriarch does not know about it. He does not believe that Vermouth died peacefully, like the books said, so he needs to make sure that it's his body that is in that grave, at least to confirm his suspicions, if nothing else. Kyan starts fangirling about the things that he will be allowed to, maybe a weapon that Vermouth himself used the special ones. Among them, the Demon Kings of Cruelty's weapon, the demonic spear Ruintos, and the Demon King of Slaughter's weapon, the pulverizing flail Zigguillard. These two are not kept in the treasury of the main residence, but rather, in the Black Lion Castle. Currently, the one who owns the demonic spear is the eldest member of the Senate, and its leader, Doiners Lionheart. Subsequently, the owner of the pulverizing flail, Zigguillard, is his grandson, and the first Legion captain of the Black Lion Knight Order, Dominic Lionheart. Kyan says that the leader of the Senate is way too old, as he's past even the age of retirement. Maybe he will retire, and give the demonic spear to him. Eugene doesn't care about this, however, as he has no way of knowing. While he is in his room, Eugene unsheathes the Moonlight Sword and notices that his mana gets drained the moment he pulls this thing out. What an idiotic sword. The fragment he got from the auction is also here, and stays in the middle of the sword, resonating with it, and adding more power. He thinks that once he collects all of the fragments, the sword will return to its original power, but he shouldn't hurry, as he needs to find Vermouth's grave first and foremost. Also, he didn't foresee leaving the main residence so soon, as he still has the gigantic Hamel statue and gravestone shoved up his cape. He was going to put them up here if he could convince Gillard, but since he cannot, that idea is out of the question. However, a new idea just popped up in his mind. Once the two brothers meet at the gate, they both ridicule each other's dressing code, but Kyan keeps staring at the Cape of Darkness, as he heard many things about it. Specifically, that it can deflect spells, and even has a pocket storage in it. Eugene tells him that no matter how long he stares at it, he will not give it to him. Once the portal gate to the Black Lion Castle is open, Eugene takes the first step in, and Kyan follows him. When they arrive, however, Eugene just looks down, and Kyan starts to scream for his life, as they were sent directly to the air. While he elegantly descends, Eugene notices the Black Lion Castle at the peak of the mountain. But how are they supposed to get all of the way there anyways? However, this might be beneficial for him, as if Vermouth's grave is hidden somewhere around these parts, he will be able to inspect as a bit before they go to the castle. He notices the screaming Kyan, and thinks that if this is how the coming-of-age ceremony begins, and it wasn't a teleporting error, they will probably have some safety devices set up, so Kyan won't die, probably. With that, he focuses on himself and uses magic to land. The Senate looks at this, and Doiners asks their mage if that is Winad's power, to which he replies with no, that is just simple floating magic. Doiners also notices that Eugene didn't panic at all, and he must be good with magic to pull out the right spell for the right moment. He asks the mage just how proficient he is, and the mage explains that floating magic is at the lowest 4th circle magic, and even though he fell from a high place, his speed was quite consistent, and his balance was top-notch. He might as well be 5th circle, or maybe more. Afterwards, Doiners asks if he knows that level Eugene has reached in the White Flame method. Gillard notes that before he went to Aroth, he was at 3 stars, and he received a letter last year that he had reached 4. This makes Doiners laugh. 4 stars at only 19? He might actually be even higher now, since it's been a year since then. One of the Senate members notes that this is impossible. 5 stars before becoming a damn adult? Carmen says that just because he's untalented doesn't mean that everyone else isn't. He shouldn't project himself like that. This makes the man mad, as he feels like Madame Carmen is looking down on him right now. But he's been a part of this Senate for 10 whole years. Carmen tells him to not call her Madam, as he looks older than her. Others might think he was her dad or something, if they didn't know better. The man explains that it's because she uses magic to look young, despite being a fossil at this point. Just how long will she be keeping this up? Carmen says that it's much better to look younger than being old, making him say that she has no class to speak of. If she is a part of the ancient Senate, she should look the part too. She is over 60, but she has deluded herself into looking younger. Carmen snaps her cigar in two, and it seems that he touched a subject he really shouldn't have. Doiners notes that they have almost made it to the ground, and sends Dominic for them, to test them out a bit. He accepts, but Gillard tries to oppose this, as they should test them at the castle, not in the forest. Doiners says that it wouldn't really be a test if they do it that way. Does he not believe in his children at all? Gillard says that he does, so Doiners notes that this is very different from the blood succession ritual, as there is no reason to cater to their age and experience. Gillard tells him that if they were going to do it like that, they should have invited Iode here too. Doiners finds it disappointing that he still hasn't gotten over that incident. He understands that it's his son, but he needs to let him go. He's living a happy and peaceful life at his mother's place, so it's all good. Gillard notes that still, he is the oldest of the main family, and even he will not succeed the patriarch title. He might as well be a part of this ceremony. Doiners taps him on the shoulder and tells him that it's a shame it happened, but unfortunately, that child has already become an adult. Where Eugene is, a two-headed ogre attacks him, which he easily takes care of, as its head is very exposed. Apparently this is the second one he fought, but it's strange as these ogres are the type to take entire forests as their territory, so two being in the same region is unheard of. He thinks that maybe they were raised in captivity, but maybe it's not just these ogres, as the wild forest feels like a farm for monsters. Also, there's no restriction put on their mana, like in the blood succession ritual, so there's no way that they just dropped them out of the sky just to fight some measly monsters. He continues walking around, but that's when he feels the wind coming faster in one direction, and is glad that there will finally be some action going on. Suddenly a wyvern appears, but it's leashed and is being rode on by none other than Seal, who wonders how Eugene managed to dodge in time. Eugene says that defeating just monsters would have been too easy, but it's been a long time since they last met. Doesn't she think that she's a bit too harsh, to just attack him instead of greeting him nicely? She asks if his head hurts, and Eugene asks why it would. Seal explains that there is a barrier over this forest, and it should be clouding his mind quite a lot. Eugene notes that indeed, he felt a little dizzy when he first came here, but that's it. Seal is surprised that that's all that he felt, but Eugene tells her that he's pretty sturdy. Seal thinks that barrier is supposed to project the mind's fear into reality, as illusions, in order to break down their mind. When she met Cayenne, he was screaming like a maniac because of some ghost illusion. Eugene thinks that he's endured countless psychological attacks in his past life. Additionally, the forest barrier isn't meant to break down the mind of someone, only scare them. While getting off of the dragon, Seal notes that originally, they were going to see how he responds to his fears, but instead of ambushing him early on, she has no other choice but to fight him. Eugene pulls out his sword too, and promises to not go easy on her. With that, Seal charges in, and Eugene deflects her with a single strike. She doesn't give up, however, and keeps jumping and attacking until Eugene catches her mid-air and unleashes a few magic missiles, knowing full well that she can't dodge midair. However, the wyvern roars, and with both of his wings, unleashes a gust of wind, strong enough to send Seal flying, which surprised Eugene, as he didn't expect such coordination and understanding. Seal then gets into position, as she prepares to strike him once again. Even when she does, Eugene just dodges, and while he is in the air, pulls out a whip, which he ties Seal with, making her fall to the ground as a result. He thinks that this is over, but Seal tells him to look behind. That's when the wyvern opens its mouth wide to bite him, but he dodges, resulting in him letting go of the whip. Eugene gets ready to kill this awfully creature, but Seal, who is still tied up, screams at him to not kill her dear Waiwi. Eugene is quite shocked at what he just heard, and asks her to repeat herself, which she does. Eugene sheaths his sword, but finds it quite annoying that she was the one who ambushed him first, so she shouldn't make demands like this. While the wyvern charges at him once again, he tells it that today is a lucky day, as he won't have to rid him from this world. With that, Eugene kicks him in the chin and jumps high into the air, finishing the fight with a mighty punch to the head. Eventually, Seal gets free of her restraints, and is quite mad that Eugene treated Waiwi so poorly, so she charges up her sword soul and rushes in with a mighty thrust. Eugene just puts his hand forwards, which makes Seal wonder why he's doing this. Is he really going to use his bare hands to block Sword Soul? Is he crazy? Without much choice, she misses deliberately, which allows Eugene to grab her hand, put her in handlock, and pin her to the ground. Seal asks him to go easier on her, and Eugene agrees, but only if she stops attacking him. She notes that the fight was already over, as she couldn't have won in the first place. With that, Eugene lets her go, and she asks if he predicted that she was going to change her trajectory like that. Eugene notes that it was a coin toss, a gamble he made, which makes her mad, as his hand could have been sent flying. Eugene notes that he knew anyway, that she wouldn't do anything to his hand, which makes her call him a bastard. Eugene also says that it's a surprise to see her here, but since she's here, why doesn't she explain what is going on to her? Seal just tells him to find the Black Lion Castle, but Eugene already knows that. What he was asking is how this trial will work. That's when Seal explains that there are a total of 60 Black Lion Knights, including the captains, that are going all over the mountain and looking for him. Eugene notes that this is a bit over the top of something as simple as a coming-of-age ceremony, but she notes that the Senate leader values him quite well, and Cayenne was just mixed up in this trial because of him. Eugene still tells her that 60 people is just too much for only 2 people, but Seal notes that the mountain is quite vast, and they are not all participating in the ambush, as some are positioned to stop him or Cayenne from going to places where they shouldn't. Eugene thinks about this, and one place immediately comes to mind, Vermouth's grave, the place he wants to go to. Eugene asks what kinds of places they aren't allowed in, and Seal explains that it's most likely dangerous places, because this mountain has tons of monsters in it, and around here, there are only ogres. But once he goes deeper and deeper, there are countless demonic creatures who actually hunt ogres for fun. Eugene is quite surprised by her statement, as he didn't expect for demons to be here of all places. Seal notes that, from what she heard at least, they are raising them to increase the Black Lion Knight's experience. Eugene looks at her with a stern face and explains that demons aren't dogs or cats. They can't raise them. All they did was let some demons loose in the forest. Vermouth's grave, their damn ancestor, should be in this mountain, but they just let demons have their fun around here? Seal asks why he's getting mad at her, of all people, but Eugene still holds her accountable, as she is also a part of the Lionheart family. Seal didn't see him as a real patriot of the Lionheart family, and explains that the demons are kept far away from Vermouth's grave, and she's gone for demon raids several times around here, but there was nothing about that grave, ever. Eugene thinks that if that senile Senate leader is paying close attention to him, he must change his plan, as he was going to try and locate the grave, but there are too many variables. For now, he will go with plan B, that is, to just go to the Black Lion Castle. While Seal gets ready to leave, Eugene tries to hitch a ride, but she refuses, and warns him to get as far away from this place as humanly possible, since the other knights will get to him very soon. Eugene looks around to get an idea, but suddenly tries to grab Seal, which she notices, so she swiftly dodges. Eugene was expecting this, so he charges up a gust of wind and sends her flying. This allows him to get on top of the wyvern, which tries to get him off immediately, but Eugene warns him, If he doesn't want to get beaten within an inch of his life, he better start flying. With that, the wyvern does just so, and Seal tries to get him back. But Eugene tells him to ignore her, as he will be dead if he does otherwise. When Eugene gets high into the air, he notices something quite surprising. Countless knights, all with their own wyverns. Eugene doesn't notice Carmen amongst this group, and he doesn't know how the other captains look. But none of the guys here look strong enough to be one. They all get ready to attack, reminding themselves that this is just a test, and Eugene thinks that the Black Lion Knight Order is very skilled, as even in his past life, there wasn't a Knight Order stronger than them. However, their attacks will not be made with the intention to kill, so they can't hope to push him at all. He will be the one testing them actually, as he wants to see if the Black Lion Knight Order has improved or not. Eugene is the one to charge in first, which surprised the knights, but alas, they all get ready for battle. Two archers try to shoot him down, but he eats their arrows with the cloak, spins, and shoots them back, which the knights react to. However, this gives Eugene ample opportunity to go behind one and try to strike him. The knight tries to defend himself, but Eugene manages to push him off. That's when an elderly knight charges in with a mighty spear strike, and Eugene seems to know who he is. Nathan Lionheart, the 3rd Legion vice captain he saw a while back, in a Roth. Nathan lands on a wyvern, and asks what happened with Seal, as she surely must have come for him before everyone. Eugene notes that she's just down there and pulls out a spear, challenging Nathan's skill. It seems to have proven fruitful, however, as Nathan was pushed back, with his own weapon no less, something which he didn't believe possible. Suddenly, Eugene rushes past him, as there is no need for him to go through all of this fighting, since the only thing he needs to do is reach the castle. That's when a large boulder is thrown at him, which came from below. So he looks down, but in that split second, Carmen pops up behind him and kicks him to the ground with flexible movement. Before Eugene falls completely to the ground, he cushions his fall with a wind spell and thinks that Seal told him that there would be captains included in the knights who would hunt for them. So he's not surprised that the 3rd Legion captain, Carmen Lionheart herself, is here. The other knights also fall down to the ground, and Eugene asks if he isn't receiving too much attention, given that there are 2 contestants here. Carmen explains that it's because he's doing much better than Cayenne, who is still running from his fears, even after all this time passed. However, he shouldn't be mad about it, as it means he will get more attention, which is good. She promises the test will end quickly. Since she's here, they will do it like this. If he can survive 3 minutes of her attacks, she will take him to the castle herself. Eugene asks if that really is all, and Carmen says that if he can achieve this, there will be no need for the test to continue. However, if he thinks that it's too unfair, she can make it a minute. Eugene sighs, as he knows full well that Carmen is confident because he's still a child. But to hear those words from her, it's kind of annoying. So, Eugene does what he's best at, mock. He's fine with anything, since he's young and fresh. But wouldn't she be pushing herself too much? At her old age, moving around for 3 minutes must be hell, right? Carmen's hand trembles, and the other knights watch in horror as they know what's about to go down. She notes that it will be 1 minute. If he can resist for that long, she will keep her promise. They both charge their auras, and Carmen rushes in with a mighty kick, but he blocks it and tries to hit her with his sword. Eventually, she manages to push him away, but she's quite surprised to see that he blocked all of her attacks up until now. All of her attacks were supposed to break at least a few bones, but this child's reaction speed is much faster than expected. If that's the case, she must take him more seriously. Once again, she charges in, but with even greater speed. Eugene remains calm and just parries the attack. Thus begins their exchange of blows, with neither of them being able to lend a full attack on the other. They continue with this for quite a while, making Eugene quite impressed by her current skills. At the level she is now, she would have been just as renowned 300 years ago too. If he considers just her aura alone, she's on the same level as Amelia Merwin. But he can't know for sure, as Amelia had something which Carmen hasn't, the intent to kill. It's quite a shame, really, as he wanted to fight her properly, without holding back anything. But if that was the case, he wouldn't have been able to win, even if he uses ignition. She strikes his sword a few more times, which is chipped to high hell, and Eugene announces that 3 minutes have passed already. Actually, it might be past that. This leaves Carmen surprised, as 3 minutes passed, yet she didn't land a single critical blow on this child. It's true that she was controlling her strength, but she wasn't able to overpower him. She asks if there's any time left, and Eugene tells her that there isn't. He was counting in his head. Carmen asks if he really was counting while they were fighting, and Eugene notes that, thanks to her going easy on him this time, he had plenty of energy left to spare, so yes. Suddenly someone comes around and congratulates him on a job well done. Eugene notices his weapon, the pulverizing hammer Zigguard, the weapon of the Demon King of Slaughter, and the current owner of such a weapon is the 1st Legion Captain, Dominic Lionheart. He notes that he can't believe such a talented fellow is only 19. He always heard from others that he was quite skilled, but he thought they were only exaggerated rumors. However, it seems that the rumors were not wrong. Eugene thanks him for the compliments and asks Carmen if they need to test him further, as in his eyes, he has already proved himself. Carmen agrees, and so they make their way to the castle. When they get ready to depart, Seal also arrives on her wyvern, who is scared within an inch of his life, and she swears at Eugene for leaving her alone like that. He looks at her, and she seems fine enough, noting that the wyvern is pretty smart if it found her so quickly. This is some nice timing too, as they are all going to the Black Lion Castle, and he needs to hitch a ride, like right now. Seal is quite surprised and also anxious that Eugene wants to ride the wyvern with her, and so she accepts, as she doesn't mind. They get in the air, and they all make their way towards the castle, with Seal warning Eugene to stick closer, as he might fall. Eugene tells her that it's fine, since he won't die anyway. Seal then tells him to not hold on the YY's scales in such a way, as that might hurt him. Eugene says that if something like this will hurt a damn wyvern, then he should just be called an oversized lizard from now on. She explains that this wyvern is quite sensitive, and so, to please her, Eugene puts his hands on her hips and asks if this is enough. She happily agrees, and that's when she takes a detour, as they might as well take a flight around before going to that dark place. Eugene says that he would much rather hurry to the castle and get some food for him, but she notes that the only thing he will be eating are the lectures of the elders, so he should relax for a while with her. Eventually, Eugene arrives at the Black Castle and walks with Carmen, who explains that they do not have enough people in the Black Lion Knight Order. The Great Lionheart family has over 300 years of history, and for a Knight Order, with the only purpose of it being to protect that family and its history, they are far too few. Eugene asks what they could do about that in the first place, as unlike the main residence's White Lion Knight Order, the Black Lion Knight Order is made out of people who are from the Lionheart family, and only that. Carmen notes that all of this is because the Black Lion Order has to take care of the messy jobs, and they can't get outsiders to get mixed up in such important dealings. That's when she invites him to the Black Lion Knight Order, which he is quite surprised of, but says that he already refused that offer 2 years ago to be exact. Carmen notes that all of this was before she saw his skills, but today she did, and the 2nd Legion Captain's disciple position is still empty if he wishes to join them. Eugene asks what he has been doing for the past few years, as he imagined there would be more candidates, but Carmen explains that he did find one, but his personality was too rough, and nobody could stand him. However, his skills remind her of the 2nd Legion Captain, and they would fit together pretty well. Eugene tells her that he never even saw the guy, and she notes that if he chooses to become his disciple, he would actually get along with him, and additionally, being in this Black Lion Knight Order is a great honor. Eugene says that it might as well be, but he would like to prioritize his own honor. Hearing this, Carmen decides to tell him that the Senate is quite weary of him, as the situation in Nahama was quite suspicious from every angle, but he went and visited that empty place without any words. Eugene asks if she really thinks that he planned something with the Nahama people, and Carmen says that she doesn't, as the possibility is quite low, but they simply cannot ignore it. Since nobody imagined that Iodi would get into dark magic, but he knows full well what happened. He's in a very good position, and thus will receive tons of generous offers. He is also talented beyond belief, but there is a limit of his authority, because he comes from a lower-class bloodline. What if somebody offered him help in getting the Patriarch position? Eugene puts it bluntly, he never wanted to become the Patriarch, but Carmen continues, he should think about it differently then. Because of his skills, everyone will try to take him onto their side. Did Nahama's Sultan promise him wealth and fame, perhaps? Eugene asks if this is an interrogation, which she says it is. Eugene will not answer any further questions, as he is sure the people in this room will ask him plenty of questions. When she opens the door, Eugene sees the most important people in the Lionheart family. Doiners, the Patriarch, Klein, the unspecified from an indirect bloodline, Dominic and Hinos. Eugene bows down and greets them, while also presenting himself. He also apologizes if this is rather sudden, but he must show them something very important, the statue and gravestone he got from Hamel's grave. Klein asks what that might be, and Doiners gets up, analyzing it quite thoroughly. He notices that on the gravestone there's a name, Hamel Dinus. Gillard gets up, and wonders if this really is the statue of Hamel the Foolish. Doiners asks where and how he was able to get such an item, and Eugene explains that he found it in Hamel's grave. When he hears this, Hino's eyes widen, and he looks sternly at Eugene. He explains that, as they all know, he has studied in Arath for 2 entire years. In the Royal Library, Arsion, in Senya's Hall, to be exact, he was able to learn about Hamel's grave through witchcraft. Doiner asks how, and Eugene notes that this is the very first time someone from their family has gotten to look into witchcraft, so he assumes that Senya meant for one of them to find it. Hamel is an old friend of Vermouth, their ancestor, and unlike the other ones, he was not able to return, as he sacrificed himself for the sake of the world and his friends. Eugene feels embarrassed after saying something so cringy, but continues, and says that he walked through the Nahama Desert and found Sir Hamel's grave. It wasn't in pristine condition, though. In fact, it was the opposite, as the only things that remained intact are right here, the statue and the gravestone. He wasn't alone, however, as there was also a Death Knight made from Hamel's corpse, and he was able to defeat it, but he also came across the terrifying dungeon master of the desert, Amelia Merwin. The mage is shocked that he met her, and most importantly, that he came out alive. Eugene explains that he is alive right now, because the Demon King of Incarceration appeared. Everyone is shocked at this revelation, and Eugene notes that he stopped Amelia from butchering him, but also gave him a warning that he is supposed to pass on to the others. He told him that freedom without responsibility is self-indulgent, and that his goodwill and silence will not last for long. Doiner's eyes widen, and Eugene thinks that he needed to do this, as he doesn't know what Vermouth promised, but having heard this warning, they need to prepare for the peace to end. He additionally tells them the other things the Demon King said, that he cannot have people thinking that he is obligated to be nice to them, and if they will not respect him, he will not do that either, from now on. Doiners sits down, as they have never expected for him to bring such dire news. At first, they were going to interrogate him about what he was doing in the desert, but now, they have much bigger problems. Klein says that the Demon King still wishes for peace, and if they don't insult him any longer, there should still be peace. Gillard tells him otherwise, as if he needs to warn them. He is sure that the peace will end eventually. Nahama has been invading Tarath for hundreds of years, and if Helmut was behind all of this, they can bet that the Demon King of Incarceration was somehow involved too. Doiners asks if he will go to the Demon King and ask if he really was involved. He also half expected this to happen, as the 2 strongest Demon Kings are still alive and kicking. Their subordinates are also spread around everywhere. Their hero, Vermouth, took only 4 companions and took down the Demon King of Cruelty, Slaughter, and Frenzy. However, he wasn't able to defeat the Demon King of Incarceration and of Ruin. If they really go to war, who will be able to defeat the Demon Kings now? Himself or his grandson Dominic? Will he do it? Gillard notes that this isn't a threat to them only, as the Demon King of Incarceration is surely after the entire world. Doiners says that even if it is like this, they are descendants of their natural enemy, so they will be in the front lines should something happen. He asks Gillard if he thinks that they are ready for something like this to occur. Klein notes that nobody from their families, be it Kiel or Lionhearts, that are disrespecting the Demon King. It's the Holy Empire and the allied powers of Devil Conquest, who kept their armies on standby, just at the borders of Helmut. Those damn haters will invade Helmut the second they hear about this. Doiners tells him to relax, as even though they are doing something like this, it's just a show of power, and if things get serious, he is sure they will recall their armies. Eugene thinks that this is a slow discussion, but it's fine, as he will not have to worry about them declaring war on Helmut. Not that he cares either way, as he wants to kill the Demon Kings as much as all of them. Doiners asks what he intends to do with the items he got, and Eugene explains that he was thinking of putting them where their ancestor rests. Hamel's grave has already been fully destroyed, but they should read this. Doiners does just that, and reads all of the insults, piece of shit, garbage human, and the numerous others. Eugene tells him to read the part below it, about how great he was, and that everyone will miss him. Eugene notes that their ancestor really mourned his death, and he thinks it's only fair that they put the statue and gravestone where he lays, so that they may rest together. He did not learn magic from the great Senya, but his mentor was Roberian, who had inherited her tradition, and he is sure that he can confidently call himself a mentee of her. So, he is both Senya's mentee and their ancestor's descendant, also, the last person to pay respect to the great Hamel. So he proposes that he should be the one to bring all of these feelings and items to the ancestor's grave. Doiners understands him, but is still rather reluctant, as it's not easy to get it. Gillard pushes him to let him, as Hamel deserves at least this, and Carmen also feels it's only fair that Eugene go there and place them, since he was the one to bring them. With that, Doiners accepts, and Eugene smiles widely. Finally, he will be able to go there. He will not be able to open up his coffin or search further, but he can memorize the location and just go there again. Doiners explains that they will need time to open the path, so he can keep the items for now. Eugene agrees, and wonders what kind of path he will be opening. Doiners orders Xenos to bring Eugene to his room, and also tells Gillard to postpone his reunion with his sons for a little bit, as they have a lot to discuss. While Eugene is escorted, he thinks about Xenos, and his very weird personality, as every disciple he had, simply ran away after a while. Xenos tells him that they should go somewhere private, as he needs to see that statue and gravestone once again. Eugene asks why he would want to see them again, and with teary eyes, Xenos explains that he simply wants to give flowers and pay his respects. Eugene asks why in the hell he's crying so hard, but Xenos excuses this as this being his conjunctivitis, which makes tears flow sometimes, even if he doesn't want them to. Eugene is rightly weirded out by this, and now understands why his disciples all ran away. Eugene does what Xenos asked him to do, and can't help but wonder why this guy is giving flowers and sobbing for a person he never even met. Is he a descendant or something? If that were the case, his descendant would have married Vermouth's descendant and had children, but that's not possible, as he has never had kids, ever. Without any straight answer, he asks Xenos himself if he has some sort of connection with Hamel. He slowly gets up and announces that he is Hamel's disciple. This shocks Eugene, as he has never had a disciple in his past life. He didn't have the opportunity to have one. Xenos then explains that technically, he did not learn directly from him, but like all of the branch families out there, his family split off from the main family. His distant ancestor was Vermouth's second son. The older son became the patriarch after Vermouth, and many of the other siblings had left the main residence to start an indirect lineage. His ancestor did not become patriarch, but he was able to inherit something other than the white flame method the main family uses. That would be Hamel's techniques, as Vermouth taught them to his ancestors. Eugene's interest has now peaked, and Xenos asks him about something important. Did he, by any chance, find his secret technique next to the grave? Xenos notes that he saw the duel between him and Carmen. The way he deflected her attacks was similar to one of Hamel's techniques that his family inherited. That type of skill cannot be simply imitated without genius and great combat sense. Also, one would need understanding and control over their mana. However, if he found some of Hamel's secret text inside of the grave, it's not entirely impossible. Eugene is kind of mad that Vermouth just up and decided to teach his descendants about his skills, and asks why Vermouth taught his second son Hamel's techniques, and not his. Xenos explains that, after Vermouth's oldest became patriarch, many branch families started to form, and as the family continued to grow, the black sheep started to stand out more and more. His ancestor was the first black lion, who convicted those people, and damned them. Eugene now understands better. Vermouth decided to train his second son as a loyal dog, who would keep the main family and other branch families in check. If he taught him his techniques, though, it must mean that he considered his techniques powerful enough to stand up against the main family ones. Xenos asks once again, if he possesses any of Hamel's text, then he would like to have it, as it is a part of his heritage. Eugene sighs, and says that they should go over their positions, first and foremost. If they go with technicalities, he is Hamel's direct disciple. So is he not above him, regarding seniority? Xenos is quite puzzled by this, but Eugene explains that he would be his senior brother, with him being the junior. Although he was born decades earlier than he was, if he truly wants to call himself Hamel's disciple, he must treat him as a senior, his older brother. Xenos thinks about this and asks if this means that there was a secret text from Hamel in his grave. Eugene confirms his suspicions, but unfortunately, he memorized it and burned it. He must have heard earlier that a death knight attacked him, so he could not bring it with him. However, if he treats him as his senior brother, then he can compare the technique of Hamel to the ones he learned from his family and teach him what he is missing. The cards are on the table. Xenos asks if he really has the techniques memorized fully, which angers Eugene, as this is reminding him of how Amelia kept talking and asking dumb questions. Xenos then asks if he has to call him his senior brother in front of other people too. Eugene explains that something of that nature would inconvenience the both of them, as they would have to explain a lot of stuff, so he will only be made to call him senior brother behind closed doors. Xenos accepts the offer and calls him senior brother. Eugene says that since everything is settled, they should go to his room, as he is tired from all of the stuff he had to do today. They do just that, and at a table, Xenos explains that Vermouth taught his second son 10 techniques in total. Eugene wonders if he had that many, as he only named one of the skills, ignition. The rest, he just used depending on the situation. He asks Xenos to describe them, and he does just that. The first Hamel method is called ignition. Eugene asks him to stop instantly, and asks if Vermouth named all of these himself. Xenos is not certain, but that's how they always learned them. Eugene is quite mad now, as this name is straight dookie. Couldn't he have thought of a better name? He reluctantly asks Xenos to continue, and he obliges. There is ignition, mana parrying, thousand thunders, lightning counter, asura rampage, dragon burst, cyclone, dead end, destructive divine key, and the eternal purgatory. After hearing all of these names, he starts to remember the memories he had erased, because he did not want to think about them at all. The memories of when he named his techniques, for example, Asura Rampage, which was just him swinging his swords around with extreme force. Senya recognized this as what it is, but Hamel counterattacked by saying that all she does is explode something and call it Fire Blast or whatever. Senya explained that she had to do that, otherwise the spell wouldn't work. Hamel also got on Anissa's case, as this goes for her too. All she does is emit some light and call it the Holy Cross or something. Anise told him that she at least had to shape it into a cross, and asked him if his skills get stronger if he shouts the name of the skill. Hamel confirmed, as he needs to shout and feel stronger. Moron thought it was pretty cool, as when he does shout it and attack, it really feels like he has become the Asura. Eugene is now extremely embarrassed, as he was too young back then. He only used these names for a couple years, then erased them from memory, after realizing how cringe they were. But Vermouth, that rat bastard, memorized them fully and taught them as skills. Vermouth was smart, so he must have memorized them quite quickly, and 300 years down the line, these names, like eternal purgatory, are being screamed into the heavens. This makes Eugene rise to the higher echelons of cringe, where no man should be. He never expected for those dumb names to be passed down 3 entire centuries later, and especially in the Lionheart family, he should have just regressed instead of reincarnating and killed his past self with his own 2 hands. Xenos asks if these names were written in the hidden text he burned, and Eugene explains that the book he found did not have these cringe names. So those skill names must be the one Hamel made when he was still quite immature. Xenos is quite hurt by this, as he may be his senior brother, but he will not stand by while he looks down on these skills that their ancestors worked hard to achieve. Eugene says that he is misunderstanding. It's not about the skills, it's about their names. He should put his hand on his chest and be honest here. Thousand Thunders, Dead End, Asura Rampage. Aren't these names even a little embarrassing? Xenos thinks about it, and notes that Carmen's ultimate attack is called Destiny Breaker. So it seems that making cringe names runs in the family. Eugene pulls out a feather and paper, noting that he should write in detail about these skills, and he will compare them to the text in his head, so that he can fix any wrong parts for him. While Xenos does that, Eugene asks him if he ever entered their ancestors' graves. Xenos confirms that he did, but only once, when he became captain. And it wasn't just him. Anyone who is appointed captain gets the chance to visit Vermouth's grave, and swear on their life to continue protecting the family. Eugene then asks what kind of place it is, and Xenos notes that it's nothing too expensive, it's just a very secret spot, so he can't tell him in detail, but it's sort of a temple, if he had to compare it to something. Perhaps Vermouth transcended to a god when he passed, and that's why the temple was built, to worship him. Eugene ponders on the idea, and thinks that if he did actually become a god, then reincarnating his best friends is not impossible. But if he had acquired omnipotence, then he wouldn't have fought Senya. Xenos finishes with the skill descriptions, and when Eugene reads them, he thinks that they are all a mess. These dumbasses that inherited the Hamel method must have changed a ton of things to try and compensate. Eugene sits down and explains that this is much different than what he saw. He erases the Hamel method text from the paper, which makes Xenos ask why, but Eugene tells him to be quiet, as it doesn't concern him. He should keep in mind, however, these techniques are not really that great to have their own name. Being restricted to only these techniques will only damage them in the long run, as it will block their growth. He should stay far away from the Hamel method as well. Xenos knows he's right, but can't help but wonder, did he already master the Hamel method perfectly? Eugene notes that he's editing this paper now, so yes, he has. Xenos excuses his rudeness, but he wants to know how much of the Hamel method he understands. Eugene gets up and tells him to observe closely. He then gathers up mana at the tip of his blade and unleashes it in a small and controlled explosion. Xenos notices that this is the Eternal Purgatory skill, and it was cast with ease this time, as this technique is famous for consuming tons of mana. Eugene asks if this is enough, and Xenos asks him to show him the Destruction Divine Chi too. Eugene notes that it's just wrapping mana around his body. He should take this already and study it. However, he has one condition. If Carmen or anyone else tells him to take him as a disciple, he should reject them. Xenos asks why, as if someone like him were to be in the Black Lion Knights, it would be a great honor. Eugene threatens him with the paper, and Xenos immediately folds, confirming that he will be rejecting them as fast as possible. Later, Eugene has a meal with Seal, who just stares at him while he eats. She then asks what he talked with Xenos about all day. Did he perhaps decide to join the Black Lion Knights? Eugene notes that he didn't. They just talked about techniques and such. She also asks about how close he was with the Prince of Aroth, and about Roberian. Did he perhaps introduce him to a promising young mage or something? Eugene tells her to stop with the questions, as she knows already, he's not the type to socialize. Seal explains that their brother will become quite the busy fellow starting next year, and many renowned nobles and other royal families will want to get introduced to their brother, who is the successor of the Lionheart family. Additionally, the Sea Kingdom's Simuan's young princess and the Luhar Kingdom princess are both his marriage candidates. He might actually be the first one to get married, out of the three of them. Eugene thinks that the Luhar Kingdom was set up by Moron, so he doesn't even want to know what her descendant looks like. Just when he starts feeling bad for Cayenne, he arrives, all tattered up and very dirty. Eugene thought he would have been lost for a few more days, and asks if he saw any more ghosts in the forest. Cayenne doesn't even want to think about that, but thinks that he spent an entire day struggling against different illusions and monsters. But Eugene, this damn bastard, arrived at the castle within an hour of him descending to the woods. Suddenly, a maid comes with an urgent message. A guest will arrive soon, so they all should get ready and come to the warp gate. Seal notes that she didn't hear anything about this, and the maid explains that they just received the message, and the visit was decided during the conference meeting between the different elders. Eugene asks who this important guest is, and the maid says that it's the auxiliary bishop of the Holy Empire, Eurus, Christina. Everyone from the family gets dressed and waits at the warp gate, where eventually Christina arrives, with 3 knights in tow. Eugene is quite shocked, as she looks exactly like Anise. She thanks them for the grandiose welcome, and Doiners admits that he did not expect her to come all the way here. She notes that she should naturally respond to any summons she gets, and that they should go talk things through. When they do that, Eugene stares at her, which makes her suddenly stop and smile in his direction, something which takes him by surprise. Seal asks if they ever met before, and Eugene denies this, as this is his first time seeing her. Seal then asks why she was smiling at him like that, something which Eugene cannot answer, as he doesn't know either. Later, while he is having some tea, Eugene thinks that Christina is an adopted daughter of one of the 3 cardinals of the Holy Empire, and also a saintess of a long line of successors after Anisa's disappearance. She is not literally a saint at the moment, but she is the only candidate there is, so in a few years, she will surely become the saintess. The maid knocks at his door and announces that there is a guest here to see him, the bishop, Christina. He goes to meet her, and they both introduce each other. Eugene asks what brings her here, and she explains that she received a revelation from God, which makes Eugene ask what kind. She doesn't want to tell him, however, which makes Eugene wonder why he told him in the first place. Christina explains that this was just to let him know this meeting was guided by God. Additionally, the meeting with the elders has ended, and since the head of the Senate decided to open the doors to Hamel's grave, she will accompany him. Eugene is quite puzzled by this, but she says that this was her purpose for being here anyway, so he lets it go. While they walk the halls, Eugene notes that she is the sole candidate for the saintess position. Is this role passed down through bloodline, perhaps? Christina doesn't seem to get the question, and Eugene explains that he learned magic for 2 years in the Royal Library, Acreon, where Senya's hall resides. In there, paintings of her friends from 300 years ago can be found, and that includes Anis, the faithful. He doesn't know how she might react to this, but she looks a lot like Anis, eerily so. Christina keeps the same monotone smile and accepts this as a compliment, rather than anything. Eugene thought she would have been more surprised, but maybe the other priests said so as well, so she might have heard this quite often. She notes that he sees the great Anis in her. Perhaps this is another miracle from God. But how much does he know about her truly? Eugene says that she's the only saintess candidate currently, and also the adopted daughter of Cardinal Rogerus. Christina confirms that indeed, she was abandoned by her parents when she was just an infant. But she's not sad, as her parents surely wanted God to look after her, and abandoned her in front of the abbey. Thus, she knows nothing of where she came from, but since he says that she is similar to Anis, perhaps she is her ancestor. Eugene heard that she did not have any children, but Christina says that she was human too. Perhaps she just wanted a child. Eugene thinks that it's probable. Anis was always a snake, and very secretive, despite being a saint. When they get out, Eugene notes that it's cold, so he hands Christina a cloak, which she wears immediately. Eugene then asks if they're going to the round table, but Christina says that they aren't. They are going to the back of the castle, as that is where the grave is. While they walk on a steep hill, Christina notes that he must have quite a lot of interest in the heroes of old, which Eugene doesn't confirm or deny. She explains that Hogani is a part of the Nahama territory, but it is also appointed as the Holy Land of the Holy Empire. Every year, tons of believers choose to go there for their pilgrimage, and naturally, there are bound to be tons of eyes in the Holy Land. This might come out as offensive, but she knows why he was in Hogani. Eugene is not offended at all, as he also felt tons of people stare at him in Hogani. Is the Holy Empire watching him closely because of God's revelation? Christina still won't tell him, since he isn't a believer. So even if it's on his mind, she informed him for that purpose only. Eugene smiles, as her personality is bad, and with her looks, she is exactly like how Anis used to be. Even though they all shared stories of the past, Anis never talked about hers, and although she had not said it, he knew very well. Every time someone mentioned any cardinal of the Holy Empire, the ones who raised her, Anis's usual silence would be replaced with a crooked smile. She detested her past and what happened in it. They finally arrive at the location, and Christina notes that below is a path that will lead to Vermouth's grave. Eugene asks if they really have to jump off a cliff like this, and she says that they must, and she also knows that he can use flight magic, but he mustn't this time. All he needs to do is grab her hand and trust her. After Eugene does that, Christina immediately jumps off and pulls a rod out of her tools. She uses this rod to create a pair of wings, but Eugene sees something else, an angel with the hair and facial expression as Anis's. He snaps back to reality and tells Christina that he just saw an angel. This makes her look at him weirdly, as this is only a divine spell that has nothing to do with angels. It only protects the wearer from falling from a high place. Eugene shuts up, but he knows what he saw, as that face was the same as Anis's. He's positive. Christina notes that they have arrived, and when the yellow holy magic disappears, Eugene is stunned, as he is now in a beautiful green field. Christina picks up a grass leaf, and says that even though it looks like grass, it's not, as it doesn't have any life energy inside. Eugene tells her that it's only spatial magic, and thinks that to create such a place would be impossible, with only common magic. So who did it, Senya or Vermouth? Alas, they continue forward and arrive at Vermouth's grave, where a statue of him stands. Suddenly, Doiners, accompanied by Gillard, appears, and Doiners expresses his wish for every Lionheart to see this place. But sadly, it must be protected. Putting the Hamel statue around here isn't a bad idea, as he was Vermouth's longtime friend, so it would hold some meaning for it to stand by him. However, in order to open a path to this place, one needs the Patriarch's and the Senate's acknowledgement. Those two titles were created by the founder, and it was said that besides the Patriarch's succession and appointment ceremony of the commander of the Black Lion Knights, nobody else can enter. Christina knows this is directed at her, but as long as she respects their traditions, she came here with an important reason. Gillard then explains that the timing was rather inappropriate, as she stubbornly decided to follow his son into this place. As the Patriarch, he could have just ignored this, but did not, to hold respect to both of their ancestors. And she also said that she came here because of God's revelation, which coincidentally lines with the Demon King announcing his peace is almost over. So he asks her to just say it already. Christina says that she will dare to say it, and pulls out the Holy Rod once again. She, Christina Rogeris, the adopted son of Michael Rogeris, is the only Saintess candidate in the whole Holy Empire. From this moment forth, she will be representing the Pope, and right now, she asks them to please open the grave of the great hero, Vermouth. His soul did not go to heaven, and from this revelation, his soul did not find salvation, and is still wandering the earth. As the Saintess, she must check the hero's last moment. Doiners says that he will follow whatever Gillard chooses, who is kind of glad that he will be able to open the grave with his own hands. Once they get inside, Christina numbers the number of beautiful things around here, but they are all fake, as there is nothing real inside of this temple. Gillard explains that it was the will of the founder to not have any descendants carve any statues or put decorations. According to that, they shouldn't put the Hamel statue here, but considering that it was not made by one of his descendants, it's fine. Christina thinks that this is beautiful. To reunite two old friends in the same resting place, this is certainly God's will. Eugene asks if defaming Hamel's grave and insulting the corpse by letting it become a death knight is also God's will. Christina looks at him and says that it wasn't. That's why he was able to get out of there and rescue the statue. Eugene looks at her sternly, as even a niece didn't use God's name that much as this one does. Eventually they arrive at the coffin, and Gillard tells them to observe while he opens it. While the two close on the coffin, Eugene thinks that he didn't know they would be doing it so swiftly. He begs him to just be a body lying in the coffin, a mummy. Hell, even some bones would suffice. He doesn't care, as long as he's dead and lying in there. If he really is dead, he will find peace, and with that, he will be able to lift the suspicions he had on him. Eugene thinks that Vermouth was not involved with his reincarnation, but fighting Senya and forcing her to flee. He also damns the Demon King, as that bastard talked about love like he and Vermouth were longtime friends. He will never believe that, so he begs the great Vermouth to be dead. When the coffin opens, Gillard is shocked, but Christina already knew that the coffin is completely empty. Eugene's entire body writhes, and his fist is clenched so hard his veins are about to pop. Gillard thinks that he's only concealing himself, but that doesn't matter now, as Christina announces she will tell them the revelation. From this moment forward, Eugene will be titled the next hero, the man that succeeds the great Vermouth. This is the will of God, and the Pope also acknowledges it. Until now, there have been no moves on the demon part, so they will not announce it just yet, but she will be with him, as the Holy Empire's witness. Gillard asks what she means, and Christina notes that this is not God's word, but she thinks that Eugene is a reincarnation of Vermouth. If that is true, then she can accept why his soul did not enter heaven, as in order to face the danger that would fall on the world, the hero's soul descended into a descendant's body. Eugene starts laughing, and asks if she got permission to do this from her little god. A fucking hero? What a joke. He is the reincarnation of Vermouth. How funny. But she should really cut the bullshit. Just how great is their god, that she is harassing him, who is doing nothing, and saying that he is the reincarnation of the hero. Christina apologizes, as that was only her thoughts, but she shouldn't blame her, or God's revelation for that matter. Eugene disagrees. He doesn't even believe in her god, and he doesn't plan to, so he will be doing whatever he wishes. he is only himself, Eugene Lionheart. So if she needs a hero, she should make one from their worshipper. Or better yet, beg her god to send one down. He looks at Gillard, who is flabbergasted, and apologizes for the harsh words. But he does not plan to be recognized as a damn hero, so he should understand him. While on the topic, he does not want to be patriarch, and will also not join the Black Lion Knights. Just because he will not do these things, it doesn't mean that he will disrespect the family, so he asks him to continue to support him just like before. Gillard, with a heavy expression, agrees, and respects his decision. Eugene smiles, and tells Christina that he also has a message for her almighty God. That is, to go fuck himself. That is all he wanted to say. Gillard is about to go into shock, but Christina just stares at him, and Eugene turns away, as he is tired, so he will be going to sleep. Gillard asks what will happen to Hamel's statue, and Eugene explains that Hamel would have not wanted to rest in a place where his comrade wasn't. With that, the tale of Hamel's reincarnation ends, for now at least. Stay tuned in the future.